Okay. What I've got here is a perspex window that goes in the back of my car. I think they're a bit bendy, and I was going to put this aluminium trim on the edge, and that will be screwed and tapped into the plastic and stiffen up the edge. Only thing is, I've just beat that piece of aluminium to the right shape from a flat strip. Started off as a flat strip, and it isn't big enough, so I'm going to make another one. There isn't enough width of the flange, so when you put the screws in, they're a bit too close to the edge of the plastic, and I'm afraid it'll break, so I've got to do it again. Right, I've marked out that piece of metal. It's 14 millimeters wide. I got 4 mil for the top of the width of the plastic and 10 mil for the flange. That one there is an 8 mil flange, and it's a bit too small. So 8 mils, 10 mil wide will be possibly about right, and I can always file it off a little bit. So I've marked a bend line, and now I've got to bend over that flange, and then I bent it. Then I formed these bends around. Okay, I've got nothing very special to bend this around. I've just got a thick piece of steel in the vise and another chunk round the back. I've just clamped it there and tapped this piece of metal down to line up with the line. All I've done was, when that flange was standing up, was initially just ran a piece of wood along and hammered it over with a bit of wood. It's not so hard. Now I found this piece of hard plastic was quite good, just to go along and hammer it down. But in the end I had to use, could probably use that one, be alright, but don't hit it very hard. Just go along, just dab it down. But I used this little hammer, and I found that once you get the right position, only tapping it, went along like that, just finished it, just tapped it down just to get it nice and square onto the piece of material, and then just finished it off with a ruler and a bit of emery cloth and just went up and down it like that. And this here was a lot rougher than that end, and that was it. So basically you end up, it's a bit curved at the moment, but we're not worried about that. But it's bent it over. I've got that flange, and now I've got to bend it on its edge and tap it at the same time. I've got a lump of metal here which happens to be the right radius, and a slightly smaller diameter would be better. You don't want it bigger diameter because you'll only get down to that circle. And I've spaced it away with some shim in here, a bit of scrap material, and I've buffed it up a little bit where I want to hammer, so it's not quite so rough. And for the tighter corner, I've got another circle here, which is another scrap piece with a bit of shim on it, just taped on so it doesn't fall off. And I've placed it in the vise so it's slightly down from the edge, and that allows me, which I've already had a go at, place that in there like that, so it's below that edge, so that it keeps it from folding over the top. And what you do is tap it in about this area whilst pushing on that, and you have to work at this, work it to and fro, and eventually you can get it to go round. It goes all shapes to start with, and you think it'll never go, but it will work its way. And to do the slower curve, all you do is you just push it through. I shall just show you now. Okay, just to do the slower curve, just because that bit there is straight, and so I put that in there, and just lean on that end and just tap it to and fro. It is slow, It does put dents in it, but it will clean out. I've done it before. And in the end, you need to overdo this curve, because when you turn it over and start cleaning up some of the dents and straightening it up, it straightens back out again. So you need to overdo the curve slightly. So you can see that now has, look at the camera, has now slightly curved. Right. What seemed like was never going to happen, I've managed to make this fit. So if I just put it on, and it fits pretty good there, all the way along and up to there. So I've just got to tidy it up a bit. This end ended up getting beaten up a bit, but it'll probably clean up. I didn't get it quite right, so I had to smack it around a bit more. It's not 100% there, but it'll be okay time it's cleaned up, I think. But the rest is looking pretty good. That'll be okay. Okay, same trim. I've now filed, just drew file some of the bumps out of it, and then I used as a bit of 180 sandpaper stuck on a flat surface, rubbed it down, and a small bit of emery cloth, and now I've just wet and dried it with, I don't know, that's a bit of 600 and some WD-40, and I'm ready to put some polish on that. I'll see if it'll buff up, but that is, I think I've got that as good as that, and now it just wants a polish. Right, polish this up now. It's a little bit scratchy still, can't see it in the video, but whenever it was 600 wet and dry, and then I use some, this is a bit of 12, well, just about make out the two edge of the two. It's a bit of 1200, and it could do it a bit more really. It's still got a few scratches left in it, but it's polished up. It's looking pretty good. I've got quite a good shine on it. There's a few scratches, but it'll look fine. Now I've just got to put the countersunk holes in it and screw it on. My God, this took forever. I've got 3 more to do yet. Yeah, the idea of that little piece of plate there, I just put that in the vise so that I can put that on it and rub down there, because you can't press on it. If you put it on the bench, it's, you know, it's twisting. So I just did it there. I just felt it easier to do. And you can turn it around, use the other side, and you can put it that way up and do there. Just move it along. Didn't seem to work too bad. Turn it around, and then you can sort of do around there. I don't know. Was it a good idea? Don't know. But that's what I did. Just rested it on that ledge. Right. Well, I've attached this piece of metal trim with some countersunk screws onto the edge of there, and that's what that looks like. It's not too bad. Seems to fit pretty good. It's definitely stiffer. So by the time I do this side as well, that'll be quite stiff. That'll stiffen that up quite good. So it's worked, thank goodness. Trouble is, I've got to do the other side now, and the other window. Never mind. Right, I've got a piece of material here, scrap steel, which is the right radius, which more or less forms this curve. And I got a piece of spacer in there so that I can put that and slide it along. So a piece of scrap material in there. And then to get a bit more clearance, I've just kept adding tape to it to pack it out. And I got this little upstand of scrap steel put in there, which is put in and then just tap down so that it's just below the surface. But what I've done is I rubbed soap on there, and when you heat it up with a blow lamp, it turns black. That's annealed, or near enough the right temperature. And I just put that in there then, and as I'm pulling it around, I'm tapping it at the same time, and I'm using that fairly flat polished hammer, and I'm pulling it around and hammering it at the same time onto that surface, so you get the idea. That's holding that in there. And I didn't anneal it on the other one, on the other frame, but I've annealed it on this frame, and I was getting trouble, and so I annealed it, and the minute I annealed it, well, I went around like butter. So now I've hammered it, it's hardened the metal up again a bit. I'm not going to anneal this because this piece is easy to do, and I should just anneal the end where I get the very compound tight curve. But annealing it definitely helps, and I've used a much flatter hammer, look, and I've got very little indentations. It'll take very little polishing to get them out. So this one so far is going a lot easier. Okay, what I'm doing now to create that reverse curve, well, I call it a reverse curve, I'm pushing on it and just tapping it flat. As it's doing that, it's stretching the material. I'm just sort of bending it around there so you can see it's curving it. I know it's a bit, it's all shapes, but that'll go. I can get that out in a minute. Right, just rub some soap on there, and just go black. Probably do. Red hot. Right, this is the last one. So, as I said before, I've got that, and I can put that in there. And as I pull that around, you can see how soft it is. It's like just like butter. But as that puckers up, I'm just tapping it down, just keeping it down, just as it goes around. If I pull that around, it puckers up. I'm just banging it down flat. I'm trying to drop it on the floor, trying to keep it twisted straight as well. And now I'm going to test fit that. Not bad, needs a bit more. It's almost like just tapping it and gently pulling it. Makes all the there. Now without annealing that, it makes it a lot harder to pull that around. And it hasn't really distorted at all. I've kept that nice and straight this time, but it's got plenty of time to distort, I can tell you. So, but you can straighten them out and get them to fit. So I'll carry on, and when I got that to fit, I'll do a little bit more, and then I'll do this tight end, and that'll be it. Okay, just snipped off the end there, it was a bit long, and now the whole thing needs to be curved. I'm literally just gonna get that to sit fairly flat, and just banging it and pulling it in at the same time. It will twist. As I said before, you can work that out. So this does seem to work all right. I did say about cutting the curved shape and just banging over this lip, but in some ways you would need a former the shape you want, and then clamp it between two pieces and bang it over. That would do a fairly good job, but this seems to work, so it's not necessary. And this way you can just have a flat strip of material and bend up what you want. It is a little bit fiddly, but it works. Test fit time. Okay, changed out the block for the smaller radius. Set it up the same way with a packing piece and this like back part. The trouble is it's bending it the wrong way to me. Maybe I can. I had to swap the block round the other way round because I can't do it with the other hand. Better. There, test fit time. Right, been sanding down this trim with 120 sandpaper, but it's brave and worn out, so it's more like, I don't know, 400. But there's some deep digs here, and what I'm going to do is turn it over on the back, mark them and tap them, and then polish it. So what I'm going to do is get a felt tip pen and mark that, and that one, and that one. Yeah, you see that? It's a smooth piece of metal. Turn it on its back. I've just got a little piece of aluminium. I'm just going to tap along those little marks. And then I need a bit more. And now, where those marks were, the other side, they're gone. So I hardly did much work to get rid of those dinks and dents. And the same as these here. I shall do those now. So I should just mark where they are. Near enough. That was good. That wasn't even on the camera. Never mind. And then, see it all about. There. So now, those dents that were in line with that, which were there, are pretty much gone. And then there's one little tiny one there. Little one there, a little bit there, and a little bit there. Okay. Okay. I'll see what that does. It's looking pretty good. There. What was looking very dented is now very smooth. And I didn't take a lot of material. I just knocked the dents out from behind by marking them using some Chinese writing, and then polished it on the outside, just buffed it over, and that is a lot better than when I started. So all those dents that I put in it in the beginning, you can just tap out onto a flat, pretty smooth surface. Because if you've got full, this one's got some holes, so you've got to be careful you don't put them over a hole, otherwise you'll put a nasty mark in it. Okay, this here, it's a bit of 400 wet and dry paper, and it's got a little bit of WD-40 on there, a little bit of light oil, very thin stuff, and I'm just knocking down the worst of it. Could possibly do this dry. Colder in a minute, that seems to work better like that. And wipe it off. Just to get rid of the scratches that I did earlier. Yeah. It's not a job you can do before doing any royal icing, I can tell you, because you end up with black petals in your roses. Alright, so that's basically that. And then this is a very worn out piece. It's about 600, but it'll start to buff it up. It starts to polish it. Is that a shell on it? Do it dry. If you can see the sheen. No, I can't get it in the camera. Oh yeah, there we go. See, doing it dry now, it's actually semi-polished. It's still scratchy. It's 1500. Looks almost polished doing that. 1500. Now, that piece there, which I'm just doing quickly to film, it's come up pretty good. There's still a few scratches in it, but it depends how good you want it. You want to keep going with the 400, then perhaps 600, even 800, 1000 wet and dry. WD-40. It takes ages to get the little scratches out. I wouldn't put this under a machine or anything. My God, you catch it, it'd disappear. It'd just be wrapped up like a ball, and you have to start again. Right. I just put a bit of polish on here now. After doing the 1500 dry, it came up fairly shiny, and now I'm just using a bit of T-cap, which is like a paint restorer really, but it's a fine polish, abrasive, and I'm just going to buff this up. And it should come up pretty good. I'm cheating because I've already done this. So I'm making it look like I'm just rubbing it like that and it comes up, but I've already done it and I've just covered it with a bit of black off this rag because I ran out of space on the card, and I go and delete it all or transfer it all so I can redo this. But yeah, that is a fairly acceptable, I think, trim after all that hammering and banging and denting it. But I think it's come out pretty good. So without any special tools, quite frankly, I've managed to do that. I don't know how you do that any other way anyway. Well, I don't know, with a shrinker or something like that, and you could shrink along here and it would pull it around. Maybe that would work, but then that would put little marks in it. So I don't know, that worked very well. It worked. So what can you say? Finished the other trim, which is this one here I was just doing. It's all fitted, polished it up, put a bit of wax on it. If I turn it over, you can kind of see the fit. Well, it's not focusing. Usual trick. No. But it's pretty good. That one there is a bit of a gap there. It's not quite so good there. This bit fits inside so you don't see that. What you could do is paint that piece black along there on the inside, or stick some tape, black tape on there, or even on the plastic, and then when you turn it over, put the trim on, you could trim it off. So that would colour that up if you wanted, but I'm not going to bother. So that's it. Done. Right, so that's where the window goes. This is the passenger side, and you can open them. Just a little bit of air in. I'm going to make a knob fit on there so you can tighten up that scissor joint. I'll push back shut there, then if you tighten that up, clamp that pinches up tight there, that'll hold that shut. But I may have to use a different piece of rubber to seal around there, but that's basically where that goes. On the inside, it ain't going to be perfect, but it's near enough. That's all it's going to get anyway. So yeah, that's a bit better angle. You can, if you want to, flip that around, that'll jam it. It'll jam it out, but so it's just a bit of ventilation. That's all it's for. And that's the back all put together properly. And there's the other window all in. So that's that. Nice one. And I ended up previously on these door handles, I had to put a handle on the inside so I could pull the door shut, because there was nothing to shut the door with. And on the outside, when the door is shut, there's nothing to open the door. When you press the button to open the solenoid inside, there's nothing to get hold of the door with, so I've just put that little lip, so you can just put your fingers down the edge of it, pull the door open, which works. And I had to put different handles up here, and I got that there now, and that holds it shut there, holds it shut there. Beauty. So anyway, they're all done. Next thing is fire the engine up. I've already turned it over, cranked up the oil pressure, and put the plugs back in, so it is ready to go. Beauty. Right, to make those trims, I cut them off, a strip off with a hacksaw, and then I bent them over a piece of steel so I had a decent edge. And if you wanted to, you could just clean that edge up to make it smooth, and then I clamped it with between two bits of heavy steel in the vise, hammered it over, and I actually knocked over the first bit. In the end, I was using a piece of wood. I was knocking it along with a piece of wood, but then I started using the rubber hammer to knock it over the initial bit, and then I finished it off with a proper panel hammer, which has got a pretty flat surface on it. It could do with being a little bit flatter. I've had to polish these up, they were a bit rough. I use this one on occasions, a little tiny hammer just for tapping. And the corners were bent around a piece of steel which I had. So if you have a slightly smaller bit of something, you may have to cut a plate and cut a corner and file it up, so you've got a radius to bend around. It doesn't have to be exactly the right curve, just polish it up something like it so it's not too rough. You don't want it all scabby like that, you want it fairly shiny. And I put a bit of packing on there, because then I put a plate up against it like that, so it create a little gap where I could feed the aluminium through that gap and bend it around, tapping it with a hammer. So that was the big curve, and then the small curve is the same. That was a piece of stainless steel, which is actually quite domed. It's got quite a dome on there. I'd rather it was flat, but I couldn't be asked. So I just cleaned that off with a grinder, smoothed it up. That's pretty good. And that did the small taper. And then once I'd done that, as per the video, I tapped out the dents, and I cleaned it up using just a half round file like that. It's fairly fine. This one here is my favourite fine file. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it might be a chainsaw file. That's about it. And then this was a bit of 120 paper stuck on. Actually, sorry, it's 180 paper. That is. It's not 120. It's 180, but it's worn for initial rubbing down on a bit of something flat. And then I used. Actually, it worked quite well. I used a bit of 400 grit dry. I was using WD-40, but I did it dry. You can see the scratches better. Then I moved on to, well, this is a bit of knackered 600. I was using that dry, so it's about 800 really, or even 1000 dry. That polishes up. And then I finished it off with a very worn bit of 1500, but it polishes it and you can see the scratches, and if there's any scratches, go back to the 400 and work your way up again until you're happy with it. And then I just polished it out with an old teacup polish, and it's pretty good. Countersunk the holes with a normal countersunk a countersunk bit, and I had that in the drill, and I pressed with my hand. If I use the other trim, there, that was in the drill running. I press that up against the hole as opposed to putting it on the bench and drilling into it, because it was drilling strange holes, it wasn't drilling circles. And what happens is it burrs up. The holes will burr up in there. They burr. So if you drill them out and they're looking pretty good, then dip that in a bit of WD-40 and then just spin it again in the drill, and it'll should shine up that hole, so it cleans it up well. And then you need to just nib off the little burr on the outside edge. But that's basically it, and a set of decent drills. And the holes, I tapped them out with a M3 taper tap there. That was it. Put in some screws. Job done, he said. About 3 days later. Right, but that's a bit of a mission. So you can say I only use basic tools. That was it.